Hedges, The Rhetoric of Violence. So guns for this reason are easily available to white people while gun ownership is largely criminalized for blacks. The hatred expressed by vigilante groups for people of color, along with Jews and Muslims, is matched by the hatred for the college-educated elite, who do not decry the steady empowerment of the working class. The 1848 revolutions actually failed because the intellectuals couldn't relate to the working classes. There's a lot of talk about that. There's so much fucking bullshit, fucking ostracization with the Louisville fucking groups that I was in. I don't know. It's almost like if you don't know a motherfucker, if people are fucking criticizing being shitty, they're probably just being shitty too. They're probably not like helping you out. They probably don't love you so much they're fucking helping you or anything. And so that sucks. So people are just fucking assholes, and I guess I just have to accept that. So Richard Rorty, in Achieving Our Country, Leftist Thought in the 20th Century of America, writes that when our breakdown begins, the gains made in the past 40 years by black and brown Americans by homosexuals will be wiped out. Jocular contempt for women will come back into fashion. The words nigger and kike will once again be heard in the workplace. All the sadism which the academic left tried to make unacceptable to its students will come flooding back. All the resentment which badly educated Americans feel about having their manners dictated to them by college graduates will find an outlet. Our inability to formulate a coherent, militant, revolutionary ideology, meanwhile, leaves us powerless in the face of mounting violence. We wander around in a daze. We lack the toughness and asceticism of the radicals who went before us, the Wobblies, right? The Wobblies is the United Workers of the World, IWW, the anarchists, socialists, the communists who preach a mishmash of tolerance and Oprah-like hope and exude a fuzzy faith in the power of the people. And because of this, we are run over like frogs blindly hopping up and down on a road. Our most cherished civil liberties have been taken from us. Our incomes are in a free fall, while obscene wealth is in the hands of a few oligarchs. We are watched and monitored by the most pervasive security and surveillance system in human history. We are hemmed in by an archipelagos of prisons. Ecosystem on which we depend on for life is being destroyed, and through it all we're bombarded with propaganda, manipulated, mocked by our elites as we dance in our choreographed political charades. We must begin to speak in the language of revolution, not accommodation. We must direct that rage that grips huge swaths of the population, not against the oppressed, but against the structures of corporate power that create oppression. We will have to begin from scratch, for America has no revolutionary intellectual tradition, with the exception of Thomas Paine. We have produced notable anarchists: Randolph Bourne, Alexander Berkman, Emma Goldman, Noam Chomsky. We've got an array of great black radicals, including W.E.B. Du Bois, Malcolm X, James Cone, and Cornel West, as astute about the evils of empire as white supremacy. We once had some fine socialists, Eugene V. Debs among them, but we lack genuine revolutionists such as Alexander Herzen, Karl Marx, Frederick Engels, Vladimir Lenin, Rosa Luxemburg, Antonio Gramsci, and Franz Fanon. Because of this, we are losing the class war. There is no, he's saying there's no language of revolution. That's the reason why we're losing. And he's really downplaying the sort of the, I guess the glorification of violence, right? When you watch the movie, you like the person that just comes up and says, this is how it's going to be. And I do like, I mean, Abraham Lincoln, I like how, you know, he just said slavery was wrong, came in, and bam, it's over. So there is something to, you know, when a person just says something's wrong and they're absolutely right about it, and they just say, fuck this shit, and knock the motherfucker out, and then they're down, and then they don't hit on their wife no more. Well, you just fucking solved that situation now, didn't you? As a historian, Richard, or their kids, I can't believe they're, actually I know some motherfuckers that'll talk about, don't you ever hit a wife or a woman, right? If the person in the next fucking door, next fucking house is beating up on the wife, he's gonna go in there and he's gonna fucking be a man and fucking, you know, how dare you, don't ever beat up on her. No, but it almost seems self-serving because he wants to fuck her, right? He wants to take that dude's wife away from him. But he's also into fucking child abuse. So what a fucking hypocrite. He's against wife beating, but child beating do it all day long. Well, frankly, the wife is a full-grown woman. Fucking kid is innocent. They ain't got nobody in this fucking world, right? Full-grown woman, they got some asshole like that motherfucker that's always around the fucking corner ready to kick, you know, dude's ass so they can fucking take a woman or whatever. But the fucking kids, who gives a shit about the kids? Let them get fucking beat up, Moms beat them up, dads beat them up, uncles beat them up. Hell, you go over there and help them fucking beat them up. Fucking hypocritical motherfuckers. That's why it's hard to fucking, really, anybody that doesn't have a moral, principled core, that their actions aren't coming from a fucking, a centered place of, of being good to others, a golden rule, right? It comes from a self-serving place of I win, you lose, and they won't understand any fucking thing else except for that. So that's why sometimes when I talk to some people, they think I'm fucking weak because I'm not like a fucking fascist dictating asshole. If I got to be a fascist fucking dictating asshole, fine, do this and do that and do this, but they never fucking like that shit. So it's like, oh, fuck you. Oh, no, fuck you. Oh, well, you didn't like that? Well, how come you couldn't have just treated me the way you wanted to be treated? So Richard Hofstadter writes in American Violence, his book with Michael Wallace, class conflict and income inequality in the United States, now at near historical levels, have traditionally been overshadowed by ethnic, religious, and racial conflict. Intermittent group warfare has been our substitute for or alternative to class war, and class war itself, when it has flared up, has seldom taken place in a clear atmosphere unclouded by our racial, ethnic antagonisms and by our complex hierarchy of status based upon religious, ethnic, racial qualities. So there's ethnic, religious, racial qualities. That's how the fucking our class system in America is. We got the poor, we got middle class, we got the rich, we got the super poor, middle, the road. We got all those fucking things, but not everybody is like, it's not stratified as like this is those people, that is those people. I mean, I don't know. There's the trailer trash. There's the homeless people. There's the ghetto people. There's middle class. There's upper middle class. There's filthy fucking rich people. Now there's generic ways, So, yeah, he's saying that group warfare is a substitute alternative to class war. So instead of the poor people saying, let's stand up and actually get our fucking freedom, there's always going to be some other fucking thing that sort of intercedes. So if it's not a fucking revolution, a rainbow revolution where all of us are included and all of us are part of it, be very skeptical, okay? Just because one person's fighting for their rights, good. You have a castle law and you got a right to, run your house the way you want to run it. And if you think your house is best run by being a dictating fucking fascist totalitarian asshole, that's your fucking choice. But in Kentucky, this whole state is all of our state. The national force are all of our force, and we all have a stake and a say-so. If you try to tell me that this state is being run by a fucking dictator, then fuck you, because I have a stake in this fucking state too. I don't have a stake in your fucking house. Run your fucking house however the fuck you want to run it. It doesn't bother me. Run your private companies how you want to ride it. When it comes to the government, that's a public entity, and my say-so needs to be heard. I need to have some mechanism or some spot, and if you don't have, if you make peaceful democracy inevitable, then you make violent revolution, if you make it impossible. If you make peaceful democracy impossible, then you make violent revolution inevitable. And so if you got to give me that room, and so that I have the right to speak, I got a thing to say, I got, I can use the mechanisms to become a person in power, and then I could change things that way. So there's ways to do it, right? There's mechanisms and there's ways to do it. And we live in a democracy, a republic, or supposedly that's the ideal that we live in. We're bombing other countries. We're in Iraq for democracy and freedom, but there is a lack of democracy and freedom here. So, we're now oligarchy, right? We're a fucking plutocracy, like that recent article had just said. So the rhetoric of violence. There's been a few forays into insurrectionary violence, including the 1786-87 Shays Rebellion, which actually showed the Articles of Confederation was weak. So they wrote the new Constitution, and that's the government that we have today because they needed a stronger centralized government. So Shays Rebellion actually brought about a stronger centralized government, and then later on when the Whiskey Rebellion had happened, I think the Shays Rebellion was about the soldiers hadn't got enough money or land and they was being thrown in prison even though they fought the fucking revolution, and they're being thrown in fucking prison because they can't pay taxes on their fucking land. It's like, wait a second, we fought in the fucking revolution, now you gonna throw us into prison when we put our lives on the line for this type of shit? And so they was in the right, they was in the right, and George Washington would have been in the wrong in the Federalists. But these insurrections have lacked, as Hofstadter wrote, an ideological and geographical center. So there wasn't an ideological movement that was going on about it. It wasn't like, Occupy. A geographical center. There was no real center spot. There wasn't a town square that they all could go around to. Insurrectionary violence in America has, he observed, been too various, diffuse and spontaneous to be forged into a single, sustained, inveterate hatred shared by entire social classes. A revolutionary language and consciousness must replace the current murderous nihilism. The government is banking on the fact that we are not hardwired for revolution. The state, for this reason, permits the population to load itself with weapons, including assault rifles, because it understands that they are almost never turned against centers of power. There are some 310 million firearms in the United States, including 114 million handguns, 110 million rifles, and 86 million shotguns. There are no reliable data on the number of military-style assault rifles in private hands, but one estimate is 1.5 million. The United States has the highest rate of gun ownership in the world, an average of 90 per 100 people. We shoot each other or we shoot ourselves. Of the 282 people shot every day in the United States, according to the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence, 32 die in murders and 51 commit suicide. So most of these gun accidents or gun incidents, the only 20 or 30 or whatever I just said, it kills other people, but 50 of them are killing themselves. So the majority of these fuckers that end in death is a suicide. So really, guns are, you're killing yourself with the fucking guns. As we build a revolutionary consciousness, which is why I would never have a gun in the house when I have, especially if I have kids, right? Just because the statistics says that a gun in the house most likely is going to kill somebody in that house. That's when, that's most gun accidents come from the gun that was found in the house. So as we build a revolutionary consciousness, we must never place our faith in violence, even as we understand that violence, especially by vigilantes, criminals, and militarized police forces, will be used against us. Our strength is our truth, and this truth terrifies our power elites. Truth, not force, is the real power of revolutionaries. It was an understanding of the truth about the decadence of the Tsarist regime that led soldiers in the 1917 February Revolution in Russia to mutiny against their officers, leading to the abdication of Nicholas II. It was similar truths that, having finally penetrated the militaries, doomed Louis XVI, the Shah of Iran, and the Cuba dictator Fulgencio Batista. Revolutions do not succeed because of violence, although violence is often a component of revolutions. The glorification of violence as a principal agent of change is a lie. Revolutions succeed because of revolutionary thinking. Such consciousness takes years to build. It slowly and visibly burrows into the organs of power. It leads those on the inside to defect to the revolution, and once that happens, state power crumbles. Muslims, undocumented workers, homosexuals, liberals, feminists, and intellectuals, African Americans will increasingly suffer the wrath of vigilante violence as the nation becomes more restive. Liberal institutions or credibility shredded because of their myopic support for neoliberalism will become irrelevant. Chauvinism, violent retribution of perverted Christianity, and the celebration of a mythic Anglo-Saxon history will sever sections of the population from reality, enticing them into an American fascism. That's what's coming. This is what is coming. It cannot be fought with counter-violence. It can only be fought with ideas, and we better prepare. So, he said a lot of things there. Liberal institutions are supporting capitalism, so it's going to fucking end up killing themselves. It's going to make them irrelevant. There's a violent retribution, perverted Christianity, right? Chauvinism, so there's fucking hyper-masculinity. Sexism is going to be coming out. Perverted Christianity. Perverted Christianity is going to be attacking whatever atheists and anybody else that's not like them, right? Well, you believe in God, well, you must be good, so let's fucking put on these white hoods and go kill people. Ku Klux Klan was a perverted Christianity. They talk about mythic Anglo-Saxon history, something about the Anglo-Saxons. They actually came from Germany. So the Anglo-Saxons are typically thought of as the English colonists, and they are. That's the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. And they are Anglo-Saxon because they're English is what they are. The idea is. But they were Protestants, right? So they were the Protestants, whereas the Germans were more of the Catholics when they came over here. So the Anglo-Saxon Protestants are German. They're not English. They actually came from Germany. So they're all fucking Germans. That's why they're Germanic peoples. They speak, they're German-speaking languages, right? English is a Germanic language. Anglo-Saxons came from Germany into England, and then they kind of made their own fucking thing while they was in England. So, and then Germanic is a little bit different than Anglo-Saxon, but really, it's just a bunch of fucking white people, right? You don't need to be making Jews, groups of Jews and groups of English and groups of French, really. It's just white people Right? It's Chris Rock. That's a Chris Rock joke. You don't need little groups of just fucking. You just hate all white people. So yeah, Chris Hedges is saying his main point is there's going to be more violence, and it's going to come after the intellectuals. It's going to come after the smart people. It's going to come after Mexicans and black people. It's going to come after women. But really, a rainbow revolution, a rainbow rebellion is we all are in this together, solidarity, and so all for one, one for all. If one goes down, we're only as weak as our weakest link. And so we should fight in unison, in solidarity. So if you see a person who's being anti-Jewish or anti-gay and they're starting a movement, fuck that person. The person has to have everybody on board. That's the type of revolution I want to be a part of.